Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Shermi if you're new, and welcome back if you're not. I am here today to start off a tutorial series that I've been wanting to do for a while now. And as you already know from the title, this is a tool mod tutorial. If you know me at all and the way I play my game, you know that I cannot live without tool mod. It's just too painful. The tool mod by TwistedMexi is something that I use in my day-to-day. And because I often get questions on how to use tool mod for various things that I do in game, I've always wanted to sit down and properly film a tutorial that will explain what I do with the tool mod and how to use it. So if you're someone who has been on the fence, a little scared of the tool mod, or you're just still confused even though you've already had the mod for a while, I hope this video helps you out and walks you through the ways that you might be able to use the tool mod in your own personal gameplay. So for this video, I'll be starting with the very basics, like how to access the tool mod menu, the basic functions of the tool mod, how to use it in both build mode and live mode. The concepts are the same, but the way to access the things are a little bit different. So I hope I do a good job in explaining. And shall we get started? I am currently focusing on my sim self because I just wanted something to focus on while I talked. So we're in game, we're in San Sequoia right now. I just placed down a random house by Sakura Leon on the gallery. This tutorial is going to be very talky and chatty, so if you're into that kind of pedagogy, if you will, if you respond well to a more chattier type of teaching, then hopefully this will help you out. And feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments if you have any. I will try to the best of my ability to answer you as promptly as I can. Okay, we're currently in live mode, and as you know, there is live mode in game and then there's build mode, right? So let's access the build mode because I think most people understand tool for build much more than in live. In build mode, to access the tool mod, you just have to click Shift T and then it will open up the menu like this. Mine is set to the left hand side of the screen, but if you are new to tool mod, I think the default position of the tool mod extension will appear on top of the screen like this. I don't like it this way because I can't really see what I'm doing. I like to move it to the side, and depending on your own preferences and your build style, you might want to change it to however fits your fancy. All you have to do is on the first menu, you'll see move, elevate, rotate, scale, and options. Go to options and then go all the way down to change settings, and then all the way down again. At the end of the settings menu, you will find set dialog position, and that's where you want to click and decide on where you want. So I showed you what it looked like on the left. You can also choose to have it on the right as well, or you can choose it to have it on the top left, whatever you want. I love it on the left hand side, so I usually set it to this one. I think this is like one of the most basic things that you should figure out first, because I think it really helps with the experience. Like if I'm trying to work on a build and my tool extension is in the way, it wouldn't be a good experience. So make sure to have this window where you want it on the screen. For this video, I will be mainly going through elevate, rotate, and scale. I find that move is more of an intermediate level sort of move, and I don't use it often. I usually use elevate, rotate, and scale the most. So we're in the house right now. I've placed down Lana the llama over here to be our demonstrative partner for this part of the exercise. There's a few things that you can already do in game that doesn't require tool mod, that tool mod just enhances. So for example, you can move your llama like this when you hold it. This is normal, this is without tool. You can also alt place it. I am hoping that you already know this. You can also size the llama up in increments all the way down to this level of smallness, but in terms of bigness, you can size it up to an unlimited size. You can make the llama super big and then super small. This is like the standard building techniques that you would learn. And also if you press 9 and 0, you will have the ability to move the llama up and down like this in increments as well. So most people like to do this to put it up onto a surface or something like this, you know, things like that. These are standard basic techniques of building. Okay, now tool mod is activated in build mode, and in order to influence something, you will have to click on it to select it, and it will be green, so it shows you that it's selected. And you can click on anything that's a loose object and it will be selected. You can see that anything that's a loose thing will turn green. Windows will turn green too, but walls and floors don't count. just object. If you want to ever deselect something, just click on it again and it will be gone. Click on it again and it will be selected again. I mentioned earlier that I do not want to teach you how to use the move object interface because this is a little bit confusing. I will go through this in another video. Like for now, all I want you to know is how to move objects in another way, and then also elevate, rotate, and scale. So first we'll do move. Say I want to move Lana the llama over to beside this chair. I'll simply just have to have my selected llama come over here by clicking on the spot that I want it to be. And with this, you can see that she's moved over to that side. This applies to anywhere that I click her and direct her to be. And this is just on the floor. Let's get the llama to return here first. You can also pull the llama in a direction and you want it to go. So for example, you want it to move just a little bit here and there. So for example, I want the llama to be here in between the plant and the chair, but it's kind of a little bit too close to the chair and not too close enough to the plant, for example. So in order to move it more specifically, because if I just click it here and there, it's kind of like finicky, I can actually have the llama move slowly by pressing Alt and then clicking in the direction that I want it to go. And this is a super nifty feature of the tool mod because depending on how close you are to the object, the increment goes smaller. So if I go very far away, the llama moves even further. If I go even further, the llama can move even further. Like the increments that it moves will be dependent on how far your mouse is from the llama, basically. Okay, so that's the very basic of how to move the llama with the alt click method and also the click around method. If you go to the elevate menu with the llama selected, you can elevate and de-elevate, move it downwards, de-elevate, I don't know. The llama as much or as little as you want. You can go as much as like say 1 and it will kind of elevate so much. You can also make the llama elevate by another 3 and then it will kind of shoot up to the second floor or something. It really depends. This is usually a lot of guesswork, but I think you'll get a sense of how much an item moves after a while of interacting with the tool menu anyway. So if you want to have the llama go back down, you know that you've raised it 1 and then 3. So in total, it has been raised to the number of 4. So you can just type in -4. So that will mean go down instead of go up. It will go back down to where it was before we started elevating it. I'm actually just going to make the llama slightly bigger so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, the llama is going to be this big for this demonstration. So say I want to have the llama go into the floor. We saw that going up by 1 is quite high. So say I want to do a little bit less. I want to do like 0.25. That would be like a quarter of 1, right? It will just go down beyond the floor. If you use the normal method without tool, you won't be able to have the llama go through the flooring, but it is possible with the tool mod, which is amazing. So if I go another 0.25 down, it's almost in the floor. You can go all the way to very little numbers. Like sometimes you want to finesse the amount of gap you have between like a surface and an object. You can go very little to like 0.0002, for example. You can barely see this llama move, but it actually did move 0.0002. So yeah, you can play around with it and see how much you want it to go up and down. And that's basically upwards and downwards with the numbers that you can use. Right now, we've already done a few numbers that is quite hard to add up. Like I lost track of what I've done to bring it to this level, but I want it back onto the surface of the floor. In order to do that, you could actually just go into options. There is this very nifty setting that saves lives. So go to options and then change settings. On the top right here, you will see snap to terrain and it is currently selected. So with snap to terrain on, what it means is when something is selected, you can actually click on the terrain. So say you want this llama to come back onto the surface of the floor. The terrain is the floor of the house. So you can actually have the llama come back onto the surface as it's supposed to be by clicking onto the terrain itself, and then see, voila, the llama has reappeared onto the floor. You can do this for anywhere in the house actually. So say you want to have the llama go up to the second floor. With the snap to terrain option selected, you can just move it around. You can also bring it back down to the first floor. You can put it anywhere, wherever there is terrain. This is exceptionally useful when we go into live mode, but just keep in mind that snap to terrain is very important for that. But even for like quality of life things, like bringing the llama back onto the surface and resetting it, you can actually just have this be turned on. What happens if we do not have this turned on? This is very useful if it's not on as well sometimes. So say snap to terrain is off, and I had the llama below the floor, right? So if we go down by 0.5, the llama is kind of almost below the floor, and I want to move the llama to a certain spot without it coming back up to the surface. So with snap to terrain turned off, I can actually click the llama and it will just stay wherever the level that we've set it to be is. It doesn't matter if it's below the ground or above the ground. So say I want a floating llama and I want it tall and high. So it's floating in the middle of the house and I want it to move. Because snap to terrain is off, the llama remains floating no matter where I click it, but it will always stay on the same level. So it means that no matter where you click on it, the llama is still going to be at the same elevation. So if you click on the second floor, it will not appear on the second floor and hovering above the second floor because you have just clicked it to be in the position right where you want it to be, but its elevation is literally where it's set from before, if that makes sense. I think it makes sense, right? Okay, let me just go back to snap to terrain on, and I want this llama back onto the floor. I have showed you how to basically move a llama here and there. And I have also showed you how to elevate the object up and down with the elevate menu. So for rotate, I think I might want to have the llama be slightly smaller because it's a little bit overwhelming right now. So I'm still using the game's function of sizing up and down to do this for now. So now we have a slightly smaller llama and I want to rotate it. In game, if you're talking about just like the regular functions of the game, you can still rotate the llama on this axis, right? So in real life, you can rotate it anywhere you want. Like if you have this llama, you can turn it on the side, you can turn it upside down. But when you're in game and only within the game's limits without tool, you can only rotate it this way. So it means that the llama is always upright. But with the tool mod on, the tool mod allows you to rotate objects in all sorts of directions. So when we enter the rotate menu and we click on the llama and you click on change axis a few times, you can see that the green circle that encirculates the object that is selected indicates what direction that the llama goes in. This might be confusing to some of you at first depending on how good you are at visualizing things, but this would mean that the llama can turn this way, right? Like it will go on its side, then upside down, and then on its other side, and then back upright again. This would be that axis. And then it has another axis over here. So there's 3 axes in total for every single object. And this one goes like this. So this llama can do somersaults forward and backwards, right? So for our purposes, I will show you one of each. You might need a little bit of math to do this, but not a lot. You just need to know a few things. A circle has 360 degrees. So if you have the object on this axis and you ask it to rotate 360 degrees, nothing's going to happen because it literally just went 360 degrees back to its original position. So if you want this llama to face opposite us right now, like face the opposite direction, you can have the llama rotate 180, which is half a circle, and then it will face directly behind where it was facing before. And then similarly, you can have the llama do 90-degree angles, which is like a quarter of a circle. You can have the llama rotate 90 degrees and it will face its right or left depending on where you want it to go. So say you wanted it to be looking to the right instead of the left and it's now looking here. You can just do 180 and then it will change to facing the right? But say you were back here where we started at first and you didn't want it to face the left when it's here, you didn't want to do like a few more steps, you can actually rotate it backwards. So all you have to do is do -90, which would bring it clockwise towards the right instead of the left. And this would make it turn this way instead. You can do this in however many increments you want. If you want the llama to turn, for example, 45 degrees clockwise, you can do -45. If you want to do like a very specific angle, like you want to do 12, you can do so, and then the llama will just turn just a slight bit. So this is how you can finesse how an object faces anything. Keep in mind that the negative and positive rotation doesn't just mean that negative equals to clockwise and positive equals to anti-clockwise. It doesn't just mean that. It's just that currently we're on this map, and then that's what it is. So you'll have to figure it out every single time. I think I get confused sometimes. So you just have to figure out what negative and positive means and in what direction. I still have to like fiddle with it a little bit to make it move the way I want it to move. Okay, so let me just elevate this llama up a little bit because I want to show you the next two axes now. So we got this axis over here. We're about to make it lie on its side. I can just type 45 now that we've checked that this circle is going this direction now, right? 45 degree is halfway onto its side. It's toppling. If you want to do it again, do another 45, and that would mean 90 degrees, then it will be on its side. I'm going to do another 45 so you can see that it goes beyond, and then the head will go below the surface of the floor. Oh, I just did elevate. Oops. If you ever did something wrong and you want to undo something, you can always just quickly do Ctrl Z to bring it back. But if you want to bring it forward again, you might have to go into options, and then there's an undo and redo button. So you can redo it back here if you want to, or you can use this button to undo as well. That is also something that you might need to know. And yeah, so you can use this rotation function to do a lot of things. You can rotate it to look like this. So if you want to rotate it back, you could just say -90, and then it will go back to the same area, for example. You get my drift, right? Yeah, that's that axis. And then the same thing goes for this axis. This axis now shows that it's on the floor because it's locked onto the object. So when our llama was standing straight, this axis was standing up as well. So now that llama is on its side, the axis is different, but this would mean that you can rotate this llama this way, because you have your llama on the side right now and you come out of a tool and you want to rotate it. It's not going to rotate the way you want it to. It will still rotate on the axis that the game has dictated that it would be in. So you have to keep that in mind. Say you want the llama to move this way on its side, you will have to use the tool method to use this axis and rotate it, and then it will move. If that makes sense. I hope that's making sense. Yeah, so it's moving because I'm using the tool mod to rotate it on the axis that I want it to move in. So I hope this is giving you a visual of what it's like. You can always just reset rotation, which will set it back up to straight. If you made a mistake, you can always, like I said, press onto Ctrl Z, and then it will go back to where it was before. And then there is this option here. I will show you in a little bit. I will go through the final function first and then come back to rotate around center. So we have the llama here like this. Actually, I would like to reset its rotation, and then I would also like it to return to the floor. Thank you. For scale, it is quite straightforward. So 1 is its original size. Let me select it first. Okay, so selected. 1 is the original size of the object. So the original size of my llama is like this. I just sized it up so that you can see better, right? I will once again show you that if you size this object down with the bracket key in the regular game, this is the smallest I can make my llama, which is actually really cute. But you can still see it, right? With the tool mod, even though this is really small, I can make it smaller. So I'm not sure what this size is right now, but say I want it to be at 0.1. Look at this. This is even smaller now. You can't even see it unless you go into tab mode and like go very, very close, and you can kind of see it right here. You can make this as small as you want, but keep in mind that if it's too small, you might never be able to find it again, and then it will always stay in your house until you bulldoze it. So be careful. Like 0.001 in size, it's virtually not there anymore, but you can make it super small, and of course you can make it as big as you want. Like if you want the llama to be size 2, it will be like this. If you want it to be size 2.5, it will be like that. You can make it size 15 and it will be humongous, for example. You can do a lot of things. Just know that 1 is the original size. So that's scale, and that concludes elevate, rotate, and scale. You know how to move now because I've taught you how to click around and also use Alt click to pull an object in a direction that you want. Keep in mind that the pull thing also works for things on the wall. So say this photo frame over here, you can move it around the wall. Because the wall is technically its own terrain as well, you can click on the wall and it will stay stuck to the wall as you move it, right? And then if you want to move this away from the wall, you can just click on the floor. So this is with snap to terrain on. If I wanted this photo frame to stay where it is, but I want to move it off the wall for whatever reason, just turn off snap to terrain and then pull it out. You'll have it on the same level but away from the wall. You can pull it right in front of the wall like this, but the moment you click on the wall, it will snap to the wall again. So it will be a different level. The arrow's a little bit distracting, but I hope you can tell. Look at this. It was here before, but if you click on the wall, it snaps back onto the wall, but it snaps back to the point where you point it to be in. So it works with items on the wall when you do Alt click as well. So you can Alt click on any picture or painting, wall decoration, and you can make sure that it clicks into place and you can finesse the way it positions itself on the wall this way. You can also use this to pull an object into the wall as well. So say you want this frame to not be as thick, for example, you can just click behind the frame to have it sink into the wall, and then you might want to come back in front of it to finesse it so that it kind of looks like it's like not super in the wall. You can still see the rest of the frame, but it's not as thick anymore, like compared to this one, for example. For many reasons, you might want to have this under your belt. So there's another skill to learn. It's a little bit thinner now, but it's still functional. So that's for the wall and for moving. Say for some reason I want to create an army of llamas like this. Okay, and this is a project now. I'm just using all that I've taught you plus a few new things. So for example, I want the llama to not all have the same size. So I'm lazy. I don't want to go through like, I could, but I don't want to go through like click on one and scale 1.2 and then go on to another one and scale 1.2 when I want a few of them to be 1.2. What I can do instead is multi-select. To multi-select, just click on one and then hold on to Alt while you click on any other llamas that you may wish to also influence in the same way. So now we have successfully clicked on 5 of these llamas and they are all in green, so it means that they are all going to be manipulated when we actually do something to it in T.O.O.L. So now if I want to scale this to 1.2 for every single one of the llamas that I have indicated, I can just type in 1.2 once and that saves me a lot of time, and they will all be sized up to a different height from everyone else. So we have like an assortment of llamas now. And then say now I want to have some of these llamas flying. So I'm selecting 3 of these llamas and I want these llamas to be floating at 0.2 above ground, like this, for some reason. Yeah, I'm going to color code them so it's a little bit easier to understand. The flying ones are going to be red. The big ones are going to be pink. And then the original ones are going to be blue. Okay, so for some reason you have this army of llamas in its different forms and you kind of feel like, okay, these two are looking a little bit similar and you want them to turn a certain way. So you can select on both of them again, Alt click, and you can go to rotate and it will show you the axis that is correlated to each of these objects. And what you can do is just come here and say you want it to face like slightly away from the rest. So you can say that you want them to rotate 10 degrees. And then they will kind of face a little bit over on this side. We can do this again. Like for example, I want this and this to rotate another way. So -5 would bring it in a different direction, but slightly less. So you can see that they have rotated slightly. They can rotate a lot if you want them to, but I'm trying to make an army here, right? So this is like the arrangement that I want them to be in now. Now I'm going to teach you a few tools all at once, so pay attention. I want to move all of this horde of llamas to face this archway here. I want this horde of llama to appear as if they're going to move into this archway. So what I want to do is shift this in this position with the flying llamas over there, right? what I will want to do is select every single llama here, which will take me a lot of clicks, and I will need to turn it to the right. In order to do that, I will have to go into rotate, and this gives us every single axis that's locked into every single one of these individual objects. If I stay within these axes and I say I want it to turn 90 degrees, they will turn in the direction that I want them to turn, but I have lost the formation. And that is because they have all turned in relation to their own axis and not with a group. So in order to have them all turn together, like I want this entire group to turn together and still keep their formation, I need to select on this final button here. This is the rotate around center option. So once you click on this, you can see that all of the axis has disappeared and it has become one full one. So this means that the center of this axis is in the center of this formation, and every single one of these selected llamas are now influenced by this center of the axis. And that means that when I want to rotate it 90 degrees now, the llamas, let me just move away so you can tell, okay? So this is 90 degrees. When I click OK, the formation remains because I have turned it 90 with the axis moving around its center. I hope that makes sense. So one more time, I will come back here. This is the axis. This is the original formation of the llama facing the kitchen. And we have clicked on rotate around center. So before it was like this. So the center has shifted from within each of these llamas to at the very center of this formation. So it's somewhere here, estimatedly, and then the llamas will all move according to this direction of rotation. So we'll get 90-degree movement, and this will be where they will face now. And then if we're going to employ what we learned earlier about moving anything, you can move all of these selected objects all at once. So I can just click on the general area that I want it to move. Like I want the llamas to move a little bit closer to the archway and more centered, right? So I can just click on this and then they will all move this way. And they will all now look like they are marching in on the dining room. If you had the snap to terrain option activated, when you did that, you would have kind of sacrificed on the flying llamas because the llamas will all go snap onto the terrain, which is the floor. So you lose all your flying llamas. So in order to make sure that you don't make that happen, you will have to remember to turn it off. But it's always a quick and easy fix. So if you forgot to turn off your snap to terrain and you clicked on the floor and your llamas lost its formation and its flying powers, you can always just Ctrl Z to undo, or just press on the undo button in the options menu, and then you can go to change settings and make sure to turn off snap to terrain and then move them however you want. Okay, so that's how you do this. And you can also alt click them into position. Like you want it closer and closer, you can do so. And then once you're done, you can happily click away the selection and then your llamas are in position. Okay, say you want twice the number of llamas in your army and you want an army that looks exactly like this. All you have to do is use the tool method to make a copy of every single of these llamas. And all you have to do is hold down Shift and Alt before you click on your selections, and that would mean that you have created a copy. You can see that the color is a little bit different, and that's because only one set of this is selected. Let me show you what I mean. So if I just move it slightly to the side, you will see that there is like a double. Only one set is highlighted. That is because we've created a copy of every single item, and only that copy has been selected. So what I want is to have another horde of llamas right behind, following in their footsteps like this, right? And I can repeat this as many times as possible. And I can multiply this until a crazy amount. So I can just continue clicking everything. This is going to get more and more time consuming as time goes by, but it's still manageable. So if I want to hold down Alt Shift again before clicking, I'll make another copy of all of these, and I can move it all the way to the side here. So I'll make another platoon of llamas to march on the dining room. I don't know, this is getting quite unhinged. And you can continue doing this forever. You can click on everything if you have all the time in the world, or you can use this other function, which is so useful for a group of a lot of things. And this is the grouping box function. All you have to do is hold down onto the floor or somewhere that's not an object, hold shift and click, and then you can see that this line appears. This is the starting of the grouping box, and all you have to do now is shift and click on anywhere that you want the box to be drawn. So you shift click to point to kind of draw a box out. Basically, you can kind of see what I'm doing, right? I'm just kind of closing in on a box, a general box like this. So there is a fulfilled box that encirculates every single one of my llama army, and all I have to do to toggle every single one that is and all I have to do to toggle every single thing that's within this grouping box is to select toggle group in the options menu. And this will mean that I can select every single llama all at once without clicking too much. And this is hallelujah, because it's so useful, and I can just now move them all into position once again. And in order to take away the box, because it's very distracting, you can just click on hide grouping box. And yeah, deselecting is easy. You can just select on one llama and select it again, and you can click away on all the selection. And then now our llama army is growing, and it is getting a little bit crazy. This is a very useful technique to use when you're making different custom objects in a game, or say you just have a very lovely formation, like for example a formation like this, and you want it to keep this way. That's a very useful way to go about manipulating the objects that way. And I believe that I've gone through every single basic thing you can do with T.O.O.L. actually. I will share one thing that is kind of like semi-intermediate, but not really, but it's very useful. So how am I going to show you this? I think I'm going to once again show you how to group everything together again. So shift click on the floor and draw a general box, okay, of things, and then close it, close the box, toggle everything. Okay, grouping box has been hidden. Everything is selected. Say I want them to fly 0.8 above the ground. So they are all 0.8 higher than before. So it means that those flying llamas, which were already floating 0.2 above ground, would now be floating 1 above ground, if that makes sense. Like I'm adding 0.8 to their elevation right now. So that would mean that everyone that was on the floor is elevated 0.8, while the ones that were already elevated to 0.2 is now at 1. One last thing to note about the snap to terrain, right? Okay, so I have this platoon of llamas, this army of llamas that I want to move, say, towards the door. And in order to do that, I would want to have them move over. And I can do so by slowly clicking, alt-clicking them towards the door, like this. Right, and then they will stay on the same level and everything because snap to terrain is off. Sometimes when you're building, snap to terrain might be turned on and you don't know, and you're trying to move like a group of things or like one thing that's on the level that you already set them to be and you don't want them to move anymore. But say you have snap to terrain on and you start alt clicking. And what happens is with snap to terrain on and you alt click, everyone goes back to the same height of elevation for one. And then if you continue clicking again, they are actually going to go down. I'm not sure how I'm going to show you this, but maybe with the cabinet behind them you can tell. But with snap to terrain on and I click on the floor and drag them in the direction that I want them to go in, they will slowly, very slowly get lower and lower. If you can tell, it's already kind of lower than the cabinet behind them. And this is not ideal at all. This is not what we want, right? It could be something that you want. So in order to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore, you'll always have to make sure to turn off snap to terrain when you're trying to move things across a room or something like that, especially a formation like this. But yeah, I think that's basically the gist of every single thing that would help you understand the basic uses of T.O.O.L. The same applications apply for Sims as well. So Sims are technically objects, but you can only access them in live mode. So I'm just going to go into live mode now and show you really quickly how to turn it on because the concepts are the same. Okay, so we have my sim here in a pose. In order to access the tool menu, there are two different ways to do it. So if you want to access the actual action stuff, you can shift click on a sim, or you can actually shift click on an object as well. Same. You will see the tool menu pop up in the shift menu. So shift click on a sim or anything that you want to manipulate in live mode, and you can go scroll through the pie menu until you find your desired option, which is the tool menu, and it will show you the options that I just went through with you guys. So the elevate, move, rotate, scale, and toggle active object, because you don't get to turn on the tool menu with the shift T technique in live mode. So the only way to toggle any object is to go into this menu to actively toggle it like this. So here you can see that I have selected my sim self and she is green, and I can use the same idea and techniques to move her wherever I want to. And because snap to terrain isn't on, she is currently floating if I make her stand in the middle of the road, because the road is on a lower terrain than the pavement. So in order to have her, say I want to have her stand in the middle of the road for a picture or whatever, I will have to go into the menu that can allow me to turn off snap to terrain. And in order to do that, I will have to click on anywhere but an object, so the terrain, and go into the tool options menu. There's a few things that you can access just through this menu, but if you want to change any settings, you will have to go into change settings, and you can from here turn on snap to terrain. And then with snap to terrain turned on, you can now manipulate your selected object, so in this case my own sim, to stand on the terrain, which is the street, the road. So if I want her to go back up to the pavement, you can only click it on places that you can actually click, by the way. If this says no, it means no. So this is where she can go. So this pavement, yeah. So you can have her stand and be on the terrain like this. You can do this for a sim if you want them to go to the second floor as well, and then you can have them come down as well. Again, the snap to terrain function is very useful for this. And then once you're done, you can click out of the sim, and your sim will be wherever you want them to be. If, for example, you want to manipulate like an object that isn't a sim in live mode, you can as well, and you can actually pull the object out of the lot into the world as well. So if I go back into the build mode, right, for example, we have this car over here and it's in the lot. When you try to move the car outside of the lot, it prevents you from doing so because you're not supposed to. But say you want to have this car appear as if it's parked along the street, you can do that with T.O.O.L. So a few things I would do to make that happen is I can just make sure to have the car in the right direction first. That makes it a lot easier for me. You can actually just do this in build and buy. Just turn on T.O.O.L, select on the car, make sure that snap to terrain is turned on, and then all you have to do is click on the road, and then the car will be taken off the road and it looks like it's parked by the roadside. This can apply to anywhere in the world, but when you're on the build and buy menu, your panning capabilities is kind of limited to this area. So say you want to move the car to beyond this tree behind my tool menu, go back into live mode, because when you're in live mode, your camera pans further and further and it can go all around the neighborhood. So you can actually manipulate your car better. So the house is here, the car is there, and you can just shift click onto the object that you want to move. So in this case, our car. Tool, toggle active object to make it green. Select it and say I want to have the car parked in front of this house, for example, for some reason. Yeah. And then I can just click on the floor. Snap to terrain tool is on. In this situation where the car looks like it's mounting the curb, but not really, you can always just use the same techniques that you've learned in build mode. Shift click and click on tool, go to rotate, and then you'll have this axis, and then you'll just have to figure out the axis for this. So I'm just guessing that maybe we need to rotate it 20 degrees. Okay, this is the wrong 20 degrees. So I'll go back in and I will rotate it again, and I did 20 positive, so I will do -40. So that will mean that I will rotate the car 20 degrees to the opposite side. Some simple math basically. And this might be a little bit too much, so I might have to finesse it again. And this time around, I know that positive would mean anti-clockwise, so I will do a 10-degree, so it will kind of move a little bit more towards the direction that I want it to be, and then I can always just choose to pull it out so it looks like it's a imperfect parking. And yeah, you can move the car anywhere you want as long as the mouse doesn't say that you can't access. Like, you can't click on this and have the car move here because the mouse says no. So any of the interactable map area, you can actually, you know, move the car. You can also move the car back into your lot if you want to. This is especially useful if you want to delete anything. So if the car is away from the boundaries of the lot, you will not be able to access it and delete it as you would any other thing. But if you have tool mod, you can just turn it on, select on the car, pull it in, and then you'll be able to delete it just like that, as usual. If you want to redo or undo anything in tool mod, you will have to go into tool options, and then you will have to redo and undo from here. You can't use Ctrl Z to undo anything. That's just a point of note. Okay, so class. I think I have covered everything there is to cover in a basics masterclass. I hope it explained many things, and if you ever have any questions, definitely remember that you can always reach out to me in the comments. I'll be happy to help you out. If there's any other further explanations that I might have to do, I will do it in a future video. And I hope that you found it helpful and it was valuable to you. Let me know how you think about it, and also if it helped you out, definitely share it with someone else and help another simmer out as well. I really hope that everybody will get on board with TwistedMexi's tool mod. I think it is an amazing addition to the game, and it is something that none of us should ever live without, and we should all thank TwistedMexi for the amazing contribution to the game. And yeah, I will leave you now, and I'll see you in another video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.